Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who will be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 307, with Will Ballard from Civitas Learning. Really love what they're doing over there, their approach to student success and retention efforts, and how they're integrating AI and how they've been integrating it for a long time. So he gives a good explainer and kind of background and context to how all this stuff works. But I also love what Will has to say around the cleanliness of data and dissuading people from their notions of needing kind of perfect, clean data in order to embark on kind of data integration and kind of synergy and kind of getting everything synthesized so that staff and faculty can be really supported and empowered to interact effectively, proactively with their students. Love talking about this stuff and really appreciate Civitas' approach here. And many thanks to Will for taking the time out for this conversation. And please do enjoy this episode number 307 with Will Ballard. All right, I am excited for you, Will, to be on the show. And we'll start as we always do, if you want to briefly introduce yourself and the work that Civitas Learning does.
Will Ballard, I'm CEO of Civitas Learning. And Civitas Learning is a software company, SaaS, online higher ed software company that actually has a pretty unique value proposition. We take all the data from all the systems schools have and use it to figure out all the outcomes that students can get at school that matter most. And so what does that really mean? Like, we can predict on-time graduation, grades, academic engagement, and when folks are at risk of dropping out. And it's not so much that we're interested in predicting it for predicting its sake. We're actually predicting it so it doesn't come true. So if we're predicting somebody's going to drop out, we don't want them to drop out. We want you to be warned that it's likely to happen so that you can then intervene and help that student, whether it's getting them additional tutoring or housing assistance or financial aid. There's all different kinds of things that work to help students stay in school. And then we help people get all the way through to a degree. So it's pretty cool stuff.
This is really something that I'm always passionate and happy to talk about. It's a lot of what my kind of background has been is, how do you fuse great technology platforms into empower folks, like student success coaches or advisors, whoever, to be more proactive in supporting their students, more kind of informed, about what's going on and kind of the behaviors and things. So it's a good problem to be kind of focused in on and all the kind of variables and details of it. And I think especially now where I think there's sort of a confluence of things from my perspective of enrollment cliffs and different other, kind of recruiting challenges in terms of prospective students, where I think it's going to just further reinforce the importance of having a really effective strategy for retaining your current students. But then I think the sort of paradigm shift or sort of cultural moment, and I'll sort of just put this to you, I guess, as sort of a brief follow-up, but I think institutions are now where they have a lot of great tools and platforms, they have a lot of great data. Now the question is how are you using it? So we've kind of hit a watershed moment where I feel like this is a little bit more kind of in the ether, in the zeitgeist, institutional leaders are thinking more about how they're harnessing the potential of the data that they have from all of the great tools and platforms they may have, trying to make them all kind of work better together. So I don't know if that's something, I know you've been at Civitas for a handful of years now, just have you experienced maybe that's something that has become a little bit more prominent thinking, by institutional leaders, or I don't know, any reflections, I guess, just on the sort of journey that you've been on over your time at Civitas?
I think that's right. I mean, we engage with presidents and provosts and VPs of enrollment and VPs of student success and student affairs. So we get attention at the executive run the institution level, as opposed to years past where, say, IR was really interested in data and analysis, and they really meant it, and they were really interested, and they were trying to convince everyone to be data oriented. Being data oriented seems to be the default setting, and then it's hey, what do you do about it? And one of the big changes over the post-COVID, but it really is a post-COVID change, is the COVID was the I mean, I'm not saying COVID's good, but like a happy coincidence was it got people to really use their learning management systems and get more faculty engaged with that and get more use of that technology. And like the technology by itself is actually good technology, but that's actually not the part that I care about as much. The part that I care about as much is the data systems that you have at a school classically are like student information system. You post the midterm grades, you post the final grade, and like that might actually be it. You know a decent amount about the student, you know what they're enrolled in, you know their transcript, but you've got this very low frequency, maybe once or twice a term data input to check in with how folks are doing. And then people be like, well, they're getting bad grades, maybe they're going to drop out. Like, gosh, the grade is the measurement. That's not the input, it's the output. So if you want to help folks, you need to know like upstream of the grade, like what goes into making that happen. And the LMS in particular getting used more. You can see who's logging in, you can see who's doing their homework, you can see who's doing the quizzes. Surprisingly predictive for almost every school we deal with. You can see who at the student level, at a section level, in a given course is engaging with other students in the course because there's like online and chat and message platforms in there. And so you can know day by day when there's an inflection in someone's risk as opposed to like, oh gosh, they failed their midterm. Because the reality of it is like once people are sort of in the like fail the midterm zone, there's not a lot of coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to know way before in order to really statistically be able to help people. And so that's probably what's most different about the data sort of the coming together is like the actionability of it because of the frequency of it.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think that being one big thing of like the consistency of use of these platforms and that yeah is like more informative for this kind of predictive analytics and the front lines as a student success coach, years ago was that idea of like all you really had maybe was those lagging indicators. And it's like, that, yeah, exactly what you're saying of like, whether it's sometimes like the student then obviously does have a very visceral realization by midterm time that they're, not doing as well as they thought they would, or, you can get that sort of like super official, like, okay, that is like how they're doing. It's not just like relying on anecdotes, checking in with the student where they're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, or whatever, like, so I think that is like part of it too is realizing kind of the limitations of that approach and yeah now having more ingredients sort of mixing together of like okay we've got like yeah that how when's the last time they logged in, how much time are they spending, like every single little assignment and sort of knowledge check or whatever else, like we can kind of blend all that together and be way more proactive than reactive, I think is kind of the headline with this. So another big change over the past handful of years is really just the advent and kind of proliferation of AI into a lot of different higher ed tech tools and everything. So if you want to talk to me a bit about how you and your team are incorporating in AI into your student success platform.
And we're sort of like old school AI. Like I personally have been doing AI in products for 30 years. Like the first AI I built that was like legitimately AI, it's a different kind of AI, was in the mid 90s. I built the scheduling system for San Bernardino Unified for the K-12 district, where you take like all the kids and all the schools and all the classes and all the requests, like build the schedule for the entire district, which was a giant, what we call A-star constraint-based local search problem, which was a specific kind of AI. So I've been doing this kind of stuff one way or another forever with whatever happened to be called AI or not called AI again or called machine learning. Names keep changing. Like AI's come back around as the name for quite a while. So we like how we think about it today is there's like three cool categories of AI to think about. Like everyone knows about LLM, that's cool, but let's talk about three like ways to apply it. One of them is predictive AI, like taking a bunch of data and then making a forward prediction about what's going to happen given the data so that you can either know what's going to happen or intervene to make it not happen. So you can have like an early warning. There's assistive AI, which most folks haven't experienced with this today. Like 5 years ago, nobody really knew if they were doing AI or not. But like post Chat GPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, like really popular, very easy to access and use assistive AI to generate and process content. Like folks have a lot of that experience now. And then this third category that's new of agentic AI, which is in effect letting everybody be a programmer, whether they know it or not, by writing out in English or Spanish, or actually you can do it in any language now, but at least for me, I tend to do it in English. Like write out what you want done and then letting the AI drive your other pieces of software to get work done for you. So like in the Civitas context, what does that mean? So predictive AI, we do tons of this. We've been doing it as a company for almost 15 years now. And what does that mean? We pull in data from all your systems. We get it every day. We clean it up. We normalize it. There's just some like hard, like pure data janitor work that we do in order to get everything ready to go. And we use that to make predictive models about persistence of staying in school, on-time graduation, engagement with coursework, academic performance, and career outcomes. So really the entire student life cycle, once a student is like committed to a school, we can make predictions about where they're at and you can intervene to help them. On assistive AI, we've got some like almost like I call it the what you'd expect features like in our advising workflow tools where you can like, hey, I see the student is at risk. I need to manage my caseload and deal with them. There's a really cool one that we call advisor notes. And so what is it really like? Everybody has to take notes when you talk to a student. Almost every advising team has in effect standards of what they want the notes to look like. And they have like a random distribution of conformance with those standards because it's extra work to do. And then taking a bunch of notes while you're talking to a student makes it so you're not like 100% talking, you're kind of half typing, half talking. And then people have on Zoom, they get used to this transcript recording thing, like, oh, that's cool. So what did we do? We made an in-person version of that. So if you're doing an in-person meeting, which is like half of advising meetings, you can click a button that starts recording with your laptop. It gets the live recording, transcribes it, and then turns it into a summarized meeting note in a template format that you and your advising team specify. So you can actually just be engaged and talk to the student and get everything for the case file without having to be like while you're talking to the person. And obviously you can take a recording from Zoom, do the same thing as well. It's pretty cool because it lets you be like super present. It's like technology lets you be more present and more of a person as opposed to like an intermediate on the technology, which is why I kind of really like it. And then on the agentic side, there's like, hey, I want software to go out and do a bunch of stuff for me. So we built a button that's like, it's AI agent, but the interface isn't a chat, it's a button, it's meeting prep. You click it, what does it do? Oh, cool, I'm about to meet with Dustin, who's coming in for advising. And a typical advisor will tell you for a half-hour session, they spend as much as half an hour preparing for that meeting, collecting the information about the student across multiple systems. So we just go do that automatically, the entire case file, SIS records, LMS records, like everything we know about the student, we bring it together. We have our own prompts, and then customers can customize it too. And then we come out with a summary of like what's up with this student, and then even more importantly, like what's up and what's changed since like the last time you talked to them. So you can all the just pure data collecting, messing around, logging into Banner and Canvas and Course Leaf. Like the typical advisor will like go and dig around in like 5 or 6 systems in order to do that. We just do all that for you and bring it in, and then you can be like super up to date. And in a world where like the typical advisor has like 300 students in their caseload, like I mean the reality of it is people can't they can't remember 300 people's names reliably. There's no way you could like it's not reasonable to expect that the advisor like has all that rattling around in their head. It's just too many people. And so using the computer to be the memory with the agent. So those are like different categories of AI with like features that we've got in the software now. And we're constantly adding stuff like that.
All right, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Forsyth, the technical community college, was juggling siloed systems, fragmented data pipelines, and manual workflows across marketing, admissions, and CRM operations. Then they deployed Bolt Agents, Element 451's AI workforce platform. The result? These agents handled over 80% of student inquiries independently, saving 183,060 human minutes, and cutting call volumes by 14% within just 1 week of rollout. Curious what your AI teammates could look like? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you kind of giving those examples and sort of explaining kind of just like the textbook definition for all of our sakes. Because I think, there's been some kind of blurring of just sort of like AI. What is it? It's everything.
What's
it's
an AI?
Yeah. Like I remember exactly doing those things and the kind of pain points. Because I think, it's either that like I think in these sort of, circumstances, by no fault of their own, an advisor or coach, whomever, would either just be going without and kind of just being like, all right, you schedule a meeting, come in here and tell me what you need. And they're just sort of like being very like transactional and just sort of like, instinctual or whatever you might want to call it. Or having to spend so much time to prep for each meeting. And then it just really limits their sort of ability to kind of make time for, students to come in and everything. So, I guess for them to do frankly anything else. I think those are really compelling examples and just ways that like you're seeing really practical sort of tactical ways to implement AI in the student success space here. And I think it's exciting that, like you said, where again, because we're at a moment where all the things kind of coming together to enable this for any number of reasons just not been able to have happened at any point in the past. And we're at this sort of moment where, institutional leaders can really be, I don't know, just really investing in a really intentional approach to, empower their team to do their best work, effectively and efficiently. So if you want to just sort of share a bit about the approach there at Civitas to like data system integration and why it is like, critical to providing high quality service to students. So sort of expanding on that point a bit.
We get all the data. And so what we found actually works really well is to get access to as raw data as possible from the customer. And most of the time that actually means like we're asking for and getting a direct connection to their databases and read only and bring that in and process it and clean it up. And I know I run into the conversation I have all the time is people like, oh, my data is dirty. We need to clean it up before we can use the answers. That's just not true. Like, I understand everybody thinks their data is dirty, and that's sometimes true and sometimes not. But what it really is that folks' data is too hard to use. And we've got a bunch of investment over the years in data processing code like SQL code, but also AI in our pipeline that actually cleans up data to bring it into our system, make our models, that normalizes that data. And so like we have a data validation process. We detect errors really well. There's like hundreds and hundreds of either AI checks or like kind of classic rule-based problem checks we're looking for. And so we do the cleanup for folks when we bring it into our system and handle that, which is actually an objection we run into all the time. It's like, gosh, our data, we need to clean up our data before we can do this. The answer is you really just don't need to clean up your data before you can do this, because there's no such thing as clean data in the world. And like my argument by analogy is like, hey, these cool LLM things? Yeah, they got trained by piling the whole internet in them. And like anybody who thinks the internet is clean data, it ain't. Like the AIs are extremely good at dealing with the random stream of consciousness that is real life going into computer systems. And I think that's one thing that people like understand as a piece of context. That like if I can convince anybody of anything, it's like to never say, "Oh, my data is dirty" again. Just like whatever, no big deal.
Yeah. I think that just to pause you there, because I think we'll break off kind of your response here on both kind of like a technical side and like the service side and everything. Because like I think that idea of making it your life's work to get on your soapbox and help people to be like your data's not dirty, it's fine or whatever. And like
it's
fine, I think that is
yeah.
like people would feel institutional leaders or whomever would feel really intimidated by doing work like this because they think that would be this sort of daunting effort to have to like clean up their data. So I appreciate that you're sort of like, no, we'll take it as is. It's I even like think it's like lived in. The idea of like, oh, my house is dirty. It's like, no, it's just lived in. Like, it doesn't look like it's a hotel. I think that's a great point to just sort of like bold circle highlight is that idea that like certainly we're at a point now, and at least you can say this, is that like you're able to take it as is, interface with wherever kind of an institutional's kind of data sets are, and still get them towards where they need to go. So I think that's just a really powerful and really great thing to kind of emphasize here.
I mean, and a big chunk of this is because like we are using AI to figure this stuff out. So like if you're doing it sort of in a classic way, like you want to make up rules, like if you're thinking sort of like in sort of like a bureaucratic mechanical fashion of like, okay, I'm really worried about students who are like first time in college who got like a D on the midterm, and like if the data is wrong and I'm doing this rules based approach, I can totally get how you think if your data is wrong or dirty, it's not going to work because those rules are really rigid. Whether you mean them to be rigid or don't, they're rigid anyway because that's how the computers do them. Doing this stuff with AI and statistics, like I don't need to be right. I know it sounds kind of dumb. And I don't want to be right. And I mean that because like I don't want to predict someone's going to fail and then they fail. I want to predict someone's at risk and then you do something about it. And it's not a tragedy if I predict someone's at risk and you have a meeting with them and find out it's okay. And so what I want to do is like I want to make predictions and I want to be able to find people who are at risk and I want to be able to engage you all to be able to engage with them. But there's like a human in the loop. It's not like the data doesn't have to be perfect because I'm not using the data to figure out who's at risk and then using the data to figure out what the affirmative act is to help them and then having the data actually do the thing. It's like, no, we're actually using the technology to make people be better informed to connect folks so they can solve the problem with like human. And so like that, I think that's the thing people are missing is like the data and the systems don't need to be perfect in order to facilitate like the actual the doing. The other one is on frequency. So like there's plenty of schools that have pretty good predictions about enrollment and drop rates and all kinds of like metrics like that on the IR side, but they don't run them every day. They run them like a sort of batch or sort of by semester by term. We run all of our scoring and risk and models and data feeds and everything every day. Why do we do that? Well, because you need to have it frequently so you can act on it. And like that, like just like little things like, oh, cool, we're not rules based, so we can deal with fuzzy and dirty data. And like, oh, cool, we run it every day, so you have time to actually do something about it as opposed to admiring the problem at the end of the term. Like those are the things that I think matter most on data integration that people miss with their systems. Yeah. And then going to curveball one in here is like we don't actually have like we don't have what I call a national model. We don't have like a concept or a stereotype of students across the U.S. or globally that we like plug your students into. We actually, for any given school, we take their data and their history, and we build custom AI models for that school based on their students and their history. So, like, what does this mean? We're not generalizing and stereotyping between different regions because they're not the same. If your data is dirty, that's okay because like your outcomes are still in there. Or you don't, your data doesn't have to be like lined up and matched and clean compared to like somebody else's because we're not matching it up against a national model. We're looking at like your own real outcomes, grades, graduation, program completion, like so like there's just a couple there's like a few little things you can do that are actually big things to make it really effective.
Yeah, and I think that's all really great stuff on that technical side because I think there's so many institutions all across the country and even the world, and like they're all yeah, have their unique kind of culture, history, way of operating, and different things like that. So I think just that acknowledgement is another powerful thing. So I think just knowing, because we talk a lot about it on the show here, just to give it kind of a quick mention here, is like so much of this kind of work, maybe, you've never really embarked on a journey like this before, or it's been a while, and just like the change management piece or sort of cultural kind of thing. Like, so that's what I think I keep kind of like gravitating towards and just appreciating kind of the sentiment of what you're getting at is sort of like that sort of trying to alleviate those things and sort of like kind of normalize or kind of assuage any of their concerns of being like, oh yes, I would love to use your platform and start doing this approach or whatever else. It just feels like it would be very daunting and whatever else. And like for a number of reasons, like you've kind of accommodated and kind of solved for those variables because it's just like, hey, you're a unique institution, you operate in your way, you have your data as it is, like we'll kind of plug in and everything. And I think that's a great way to approach this because like it's even just something else that I think about a lot is they get to a point of like, all right, we've signed, we're doing it. And then like it falls apart at implementation or something because they haven't like built enough consensus or whatever. Like it's all those sort of variables I always think about of like, when good intentions or just this sort of like earnest desire to like drive change or innovation or, whatever else can kind of hit friction and how do you try to manage that. But I think just to kind of get to that other part of my question really quick is like all of that on the sort of technical side, why the sort of like data and system integrations is so important, and then the idea of like doing all of that, and then when it comes to like working with the students, I think just to sort of lead in, I guess, to what I assume your answer will be is just that idea of like that idea of what you're talking about of like updating data feeds, kind of updating as consistently and frequent as possible, presents this sort of really full picture of the student that is like up to date and comprehensive. So if you want to kind of like that idea of like why all this matters when it comes to like that advisor is sitting there with the student talking with them, to provide that high quality of service, why is all that technical stuff important in service of that?
Well, for sure, like talking about the meeting prep AI feature, but having all the data, like we have like a unified student profile, and so the typical school has like 200 software systems, and like the advisor won't log into all 200, but they'll log into 6 to 20 of them. And so bringing all the data together on one screen so you can see everything that's going on saves just a ton of work and gives people a lot more visibility. But you mentioned change management and human factors. Like, yeah, we're a software company, sure, but we're way like we provide way more than just software with the subscription. So we have what we call customer development directors. So what did I do? I hired a bunch of customers who were power users. So like there's plenty of folks in the world who have like account managers and they're like these really friendly 20 somethings who are just friendly and they may or may not know anything about your business. They're there to help like facilitate your interaction with the company and like maybe sell you some more software. I guess that works in a lot of places. But what I did instead was get folks who've led advising teams, folks who've been on advising teams, folks who've done IR work, folks who've been in IR departments. And so like this whole team kind of, it comes with the software subscription. Like we're not selling consulting. We're not a consulting firm. This is part of what we do. And what do the folks do? Like, hey, we do regular webinar trainings for all customers. We do on-site and video training to customers, like the whole change management thing. Like, well, how are we going to do that? Like, well, we got a giant training library we've built, and the whole team has actually used the software like as a user, and like half the team has been managers of teams who've done it, and they can like show you how they did it. And oh, we've got other customers that are using it, and we can connect you with them. And we've got workshops that we put on multiple times a year where customers come and do presentations. They like will describe problems and solutions they've worked on, case studies, show and tell, and then show each other and training and help each other. Then we've got a full-on support team. So like the data feeds, like this is back to maybe a little bit of a technical one. Like, hey, you know what nobody's system does is work every day all the time, because that's not how anything is. But I got 20 folks who like sit there and like when it breaks, because it's going to break, because there's going to be somebody who added a field to banner and didn't bother to tell anybody else, and it just happens. We fix it. And so like all like that full service component of what we're doing is a big differentiator. Like it's not like a CD we send you and say, hey, you should install this, have fun, yo. It's an overall managed service where we engage with customers regularly. And then we've got, feedback for the executive audience with a thing we call initiative analysis. So it's a feature in the software that you can think about any kind of program you're doing. Say you want to have like a English tutoring lab, or there's actually community colleges, some of them started doing like free lunch meals. Like there's all kinds of different things folks do to try to help students. And we've actually got this really cool feature where you can take a list of students that participated in the English lab. It's like ID number, date, like 2-column spreadsheet that anybody can put together, literally drag and drop it in the software. It uses AI to match up everybody that was in the program with the most similar student to them that didn't. So we're basically creating a synthetic randomized clinical trial without having to like do a randomized clinical trial. And then you can actually see like of the folks who participated in it versus the folks who were just like them but didn't participate, did they have higher grades? Do they have higher probability of coming next term? Do they have higher probability of graduating on time? Do they have higher probability of being career ready and getting the job they're looking for? And so as running an institution, you can say like, hey, I'm spending all this money on all these programs. First of all, how do I know they work? And like, do they work better than me just like using that same money to lower tuition? Like, so there's this like null set answer of like, I got to spend money to do this thing. Is it actually more effective than using dollar for dollar to subsidize tuition to help people make it more affordable? Because that affordability is a big factor in most students' minds. And so like letting institutions see for the first time the relative performance of programs, and then make those decisions. And then we'll run that analysis for customers. Folks can do it themselves. We do quarterly check-ins with the executives where we can give them those results. It's not just a database where you type stuff. Like we're not just a piece of software.
Yeah, I mean, it is just the more that you invest like the time and resources and attention to these kind of efforts, like student success work, it is that idea of like, you're getting a full picture of students, you're being proactive before issues become sort of insurmountable. And then, yeah, that idea of knowing, okay, we predicted that at this point, students would fail, this many students would fail. We intervened and we were able to reduce that by this much by, like all those things were like, because I'm thinking of just even the folks who are like day to day doing the student success work, they can really kind of justify or sort of celebrate their work, by kind of looking at all this data. And then just as an institution, just know that like writ large is our approach to student success being effective. Can we, really all be kind of referencing, the same data to kind of inform our conversations versus just being kind of anecdotal or, whatever else. So all really interesting stuff. And I think as we're kind of winding down here, I'll just kind of tee up the final question, I guess, because I think you've really outlined a lot around the way that AI is really kind of empowering you to empower, institutional teams working on student success, and just kind of all that goes into doing that kind of effectively and efficiently. What advice or call to action can you share on this topic to wrap up the episode and kind of take people out on a motivating note here?
The biggest thing is I'll tell people is like this stuff really can help, and it's not AI and a robot coming for your job. Like this is really AI as a tool that goes and dives in the system and gets all the data and helps you do the human engagement part of your job better. Like there's people have chatbots and they've been trying a bunch of chatbot stuff and maybe they work and maybe they don't. Like we've actually got a few studies that we've been doing with folks where the maybe they don't is actually the outcome. We want to help people make use of their data as people engaging advisor to student to faculty in order to generate that outcome. Because people if they just wanted the content, they could watch YouTube videos or like read the book. Like going to school is more than like just the data and the stuff. It's that human interaction and connection with it. And we've been focusing on features and functionality that's gonna help them do that. So that's one. I mean, I'll give you two, and I'll go back to my no. You don't have to have clean data. No, you don't. I promise. It does not need to be clean data to get started. Whether you're doing it with us or doing it with somebody else, don't put off using data to help your students because you think you need to clean it all up first. It's just not. It ain't necessary. The AI can work around it in a big way.
On that note, because I think it's a really, really profound one, really important one, and appreciate you and your team for all the work that they're doing. Again, this is something that's really kind of near and dear to my heart, and I look forward to just continuing to see what you all are up to, and that institutions hopefully are continuing to kind of embrace this approach, because I think it is just a really smart one, a really important one, really necessary one for this moment. So we'll have ways to connect with you and Civitas Learning in the episode description. Just really appreciate you joining for the conversation and hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.